Welcome aboard for another video.
Thanks, Conductor Keith. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel. Now, the purpose of today's video is to have a look at Menards F units, the locomotive and the dummy unit, and see if they're any good. I've heard a lot about these on forums and online. I have heard that the people who like to run trains really appreciate these for their low cost. They're comparative low cost. They're a budget locomotive. For people that like, slower operations, apparently they start and stop a bit quick. And they tend to be rockets, so we'll see. I've never had an experience with a Menards locomotive. So, without further ado, why don't we get at it? What is this? A Menards box. Locomotives. Remote control New York Central locomotives. Hefty. All right, so this is the first time it's on the track. I'm going to very slowly turn the dial. Ooh, that's reverse. Very slowly turn the dial. Okay, so that's without very much power. It's a bit of a rocket. It takes off. So I think the first job I'll do is take the shell off and rewire the two motors from parallel to series. And that way it'll drop the voltage in half that you have, so the top end won't be near as fast. I mean, do we really need that? And that should slow things down. So before I actually do that, I will actually run it around to show you. Here we are, light engine, and this is like the slowest speed step I can get it moving at. It consistently moves at this speed, but it is a little bit on the fast side, because I will be putting KD couplers on these locomotives, and I will be using them in the operations here as well. Well, the shell came off no problem at all. It was just 4 screws. That was easy, but look at the glue they used to put the windows on. I mean, all of them. Oh my goodness. If I wanted to spray this as part of weathering or something, how in the world am I supposed to get the windows out easily? Not too easy. That's okay. I'd have to cover the windows. I do like the headlight and the two lights that light the number boards. That's really cool. These two guys are interesting. Yeah, one of them is going to get different color hair and one's going to get sunglasses. They ain't going anywhere either. Another curiosity is the locomotive didn't have any dust on it. The inside's full of dust. So maybe this was a part in a factory that sat for a while, with a bunch of parts. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Everything inside is really nice and tidy, neatly done. Now what I have to do is I have to uncoil all of this and figure out where the positive and the negative to the two motors go. I can tell by the marking on the post here, near the post, that the positive is blue. So I can see here in this tidy wiring that these are wired in parallel. So I just need to clip this all away and wire them in series. I do appreciate tidy wiring. That's really nice. It's not copper wire, but that's okay. Sometimes when I do this work, I mess up and I actually start the positive to the negative if the colors are all weird of the wire and there's nothing marked on there. And so it's a simple matter of then just testing it. And if it's reversed, just reverse the wires, So before I solder it and make it look all tidy, let's test it. Now, I tell you, one thing I really like is there's a volume control right here. So let's just very slowly go over to forward and see what happens. Oh wow, it started off much slower. It's going much slower. Yeah, perfect. Let's come back. Oh yeah, and also, I don't know if you can hear it, but it revved up a notch of the engine a little earlier too, which is appropriate. The timing was a little off. This doesn't have those wheels here, the optical sensor, like the more expensive engines that tell it when to rev up and down. It's just based on the power, I guess. And I found it was revving up a bit late. The train was going really fast. The locomotives were going really fast. And it was still like a notch 1. So the rewiring has certainly solved that a little bit too. I also like these two large capacitors. So I found that when I turned the power off to the track, the engine kept running for a while. That's nice because it means there's not going to be dead outs and stuff like that, right? So you're going to have constant sound. My wiring is done there. It's just now a matter of tucking it all back. a tiny bit of black paint, and we have one guy with black hair and one guy with sunglasses, and that looks a whole lot better. The low-end speed control is far more reasonable now. I have it can go a little slower than this, but just to cruise around and show you. Look at that, eh? Nice and stately. Doesn't waver on my 027 gauge track. So I've slowed it, but for switching operations that I like to do, it's still a little fast. So it starts out a little bit fast still. So I took this apart and looked at it, and it's not the locomotive. The rheostat in this starts higher. Here's how I know that for sure, that it's the rheostat, or the potentiometer, I think is a modern term. I put this down here, all the way off, okay? And you can see now that the power held within the locomotive keeps on going. So I turn this off, I turn it on, and I go all the way to forward. And then I slowly bring this up until the locomotive starts to move. Hang on. And look. So yeah, the locomotive can creep along. Now I can't really reverse it using this that way. But that proves to me it's not the locomotive it's not as smooth. It's got the coils are larger. Now, of course, they're trying to make a budget engine, right? So this is the reason that starts at a higher speed. And it must be a considerable higher voltage, because I've actually wired this, as you know, to make it slower. However, I'll show you a little trick that I've done, okay? If I turn this to just when it starts, and I drilled a hole there, put the nail, because actually when you have it there, gravity slowly makes that go down. Now what I've done is, this is just the beginning voltage when the locomotive sound comes on. When I have the main track power down lower, and I can start slower again. See, look, much slower. That is an acceptable speed to do switching operations with this locomotive. Though it won't be my go-to, but not bad. So, you know what? Yeah, I can still do switching ops with this engine, so I'm very pleased about that. Now that I've kind of done stuff and talked about stuff, let's just have a couple shots of it running. I'm going to run it around the loop. Okay, now the train is going to back into the station track on the new section of my layout that I'm just building. Now you should be able to get a better sense of the revving up of the prime mover in here after I rewired the locomotive. I'm going to close down this section of the video by driving the train out to my new staging track that is out through the tunnel portal on the right. There's going to be scenery all over this area. Here we are in the staging section of my layout. This is staging track. And I will mention that the bell, I wish the bell wasn't quite as loud. It's actually piercing in the ears a little bit. And I can't figure out, I don't think you can turn the bell down. I think it's just up and down with general volume. So why don't I talk about the pros and cons of this set? Start with the controllers. The Lionel controller has a little divot in the middle, so you can, there's a very positive feeling of when you're in the middle in neutral or stopped. I like that. The other thing as mentioned is this digital controller starts sending a digital signal at a higher voltage, okay, than this one does. This starts things creeping along. If only I could get my Menards locomotive to run on one of these Lionel Universal remotes, that would be brilliant. I tried, but it didn't work. That's too bad. So Menards, if you're listening, if you're watching, I do love your engine. Just a slightly different potentiometer in here and start it off at a lower voltage, that would be great. The other thing is, could you sell, and Lionel too if you're listening, could you sell the system to put in a locomotive? I have F units that are modern with CAN motors that are just, you know, got a regular reversing unit in it. And I love those engines. I'd like to be able to purchase a Menards or a Lionel Lion Chief system, the boards and stuff, because, you know, don't think we can't do it. If I could buy a system that I could put in an existing locomotive myself, I can figure it out. I'm a tinkerer. That'd be great. Sell the system separately, please. Now, one advantage over this one than this one, and I think is brilliant, is the volume control right here. You can digitally control the volume of the locomotive right there. You can't do that with this. Good on you, Menards. Great idea. And I like the dog. I'm a dog person. So here we have the power unit. Now, it's nice. The decoration's really nice. It's interesting because in a cost-cutting measure, of course, this is actually some sort of decal that gets pasted on, right? Sticks on really good. You know, it's like it's painted. Now, the interesting thing is, though, over these bits here, I could use my fingernail and I could press them in because they were missing some detail because it's an overlay. And yeah, I'm not complaining about any of that. One thing, though, I don't know if you can tell when I go like this, but you can see the shininess here of the decal compared to the dull of the gray right there. So you can see the difference. Now, if I weather this locomotive and I use a dull spray, you'll never notice. But again, it's a budget locomotive, and I cannot complain about the decoration of this engine. The decoration really is nice. I mean, look at the metal plates there behind the steps, the boot plates, and look at all that. Really, really nice. Now, I could not find a picture of a New York Central locomotive like this that had the United States flag there in all my books. Also, I'm running here in Canada. I'm having the New York Central because where I live in Eastern Ontario, the New York Central ran a line up right near here until 1957. They ran lines in other parts of Ontario and one in Quebec until the end of the New York Central. And I've never seen an old photograph of that where there's been a United States flag there. Now, you know, does that bother me? No. I think it's really nice looking. It's really well done. So to try to keep it as authentic as possible, yeah, I know you're saying, Terry, blah, 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 3-rail, not very authentic. Okay, but I'm still trying to, right, a little bit where I can. And no offense, this is not a slight in any way or shape or form to my wonderful United States friends, but I will be removing the United States flags there because when I look at it, it just doesn't ring to all the pictures that I've collected up of the trains running through here. To wit, here's the B unit. And because it's a decal, very sharp, curved X-Acto, and a couple of swipes, and the flag was gone. So there you go. This one on this hand, without the flag there, looks far more authentic to me. Again, it's not a slight about the United States flag. It's a beautiful flag. They've also picked out details here with paint, right? Like the handles and whatnot. I think the decoration is excellent. Really do. Otherwise, mechanically, perfectly good. As I demonstrated with my controller here, you can creep this locomotive along. It's just the handheld remote doesn't do that. There is no smoke unit. but it is a budget locomotive. Now the couplers at the end, and I've seen this in other people's videos, do stick out rather far. So when they're coupled together, they're like this long, right? But that's okay, because I'm going to be replacing these with my custom mounts of KD couplers, number 1 gauge. When I get them, they're coming in the mail. I'll probably do a video about these locomotives with the KDs in several weeks. 1 pickup on the bottom on each truck. I've not found that to be an issue whatsoever. The LED lights are brilliant. They're directional on the A unit. We've already talked about the little guys inside. Well, I took care of that. Now the A unit here has a metal frame. That has a metal frame too, stamped metal. This is metal. This is metal. It's heavy. It's substantially heavy. This is metal. That's plastic. Do I think this is a good locomotive? Yes, it's excellent. The controller limits it. The controller itself limits this locomotive. Menards, again, if you're watching, the controller limits the brilliant locomotive you've made. Another thing I really appreciate is on so many locomotives, the little on-off switch for things is hidden here and there and the other where. You know, you got to hold your tongue a certain way to try to find it. Got to pick it up off the track. Look at that. I don't mind that. You can see that right there. This is the diesel sound on or off. Look, right there. Don't have to take it off the track. Don't have to hold your tongue a certain way. Really, really appreciate that. That's a good move. Now, let's go to the dummy unit. The dummy unit is very light. It's almost too light. These say are for 031 curves. There's absolutely no difficulty whatsoever running them on 027. When the train is heavy, though, and I'm going around the curve and I'm backing with this, sometimes this would come off the track. My other rail cars don't. And the ones, the few that I have that used to come off the track that way, I've added weight to, and they're fine. I will be putting a little bit of weight in that. I think it'll be just fine. The other thing I like about this is it has lights, you know. Now, they're not directional. There's no electronics in here for that. But they do have the, you know, the lights here and a light that shines out the rear window. But if I don't want that, which I usually don't when I'm running a certain way, here's a switch that I don't have to stick my tongue out a certain way to get to. And it's light on or off. Brilliant. Really like that. Thank you very much. I hope you found this video useful. It's a brilliant locomotive. As a budget locomotive, it has a lot of great detail. Yes, it doesn't have add-on grab irons and all that sort of thing, but the paint kind of picks them out. The only thing is that this is a great locomotive, very much and sadly limited by the controller. So let's cross our fingers and see what kind of upgrades Menards might do to the controllers. Anyway, thanks for dropping by.